So I have a secret. I'm a spy. Don't tell anyone. I've been undercover in many organizations, and I've been solving a lot of bad design crimes. I've infiltrated my way through many teams and projects and processes to identify and design some pretty cool solutions. And I've gathered some pretty handy skills along the way in my many investigations. Currently undercover as a service designer in Verizon Connect in Christchurch, solving bad design crimes there. But it all started when I had a pretty fascinating job a few years ago designing some software for solving serious crime. It's kind of like a project management system where one place was where you manage the crime investigation, the other place was where you could use it for an analytics tool. So our users were folks like intelligence analysts, investigators, and detectives, and I got to do user interviews with people who'd been in the FBI and the British intelligence systems and things. So I learned all about intelligence analysis and some serious crime investigations. We even built things like dashboards for people of special interest, really bad people, who, when they came out of prison, needed to be kind of monitored and managed. Some of the developers worked with not-for-profit organizations in their spare time to use our software to help solve human trafficking investigations around the world. So it was pretty heavy stuff, but it was the most worthwhile design work I could ever imagine doing. But that company went under. That's a whole other 20-minute talk and probably an entire MBA, so we're not doing that today. So I'm here to share my story about how I've been translating intelligence analysis methods and skills to design, to go undercover within these organizations. It's been quite fun. I've been taking one for the team, guys. It's a lot of hard work being undercover. And the second half of my talk is how I've also been testing out a second set of crime-solving skills to help prove the ROI of CX, and how it might help us with what appears to actually become a bit of an accidental theme of this conference, of proving the value in being successful change makers. So here's the thing. I am really impatient. I've always struggled with folks not understanding the value of design and research and service design and discovery and all this amazing stuff that we've all been talking about. It's just so obvious the value that it brings. And it breaks my heart when you hear people call it touchy-feely or make the UI pop or just make it look pretty. But in all honesty, I actually struggled in trusting this whole relatively new industry full of X's and I's from the get-go. There was no original degrees, there was no black or white way of doing this. We all use slightly different languages. And to be honest, I think this might be what contributes to some pretty serious imposter syndrome that I'm sure everyone's felt at some point in our careers. So, RuPaul, if you can't love yourself, then how the hell can you love anybody else? Can I get an amen? Thank you. So if you can't love your work or believe in your work, how are you going to sell it? So what happened was, while working at Wynyard, I learned all about this intelligence analysis space, and I noticed the similarities between the design process and how this process, which is used to solve serious crimes and change government policies, if it's so similar to what we're doing, we must be doing something right. And it gave me the belief in design in this new industry that I was missing. We have such a power as designers. Just as an intelligence analyst does with the crime, we have the power to influence and affect people's lives. We're designing the future, guys. We use pretty similar techniques to intelligence analysts. We're looking at businesses and people and experiences and processes. And we have a very similar process. So I'm going to go through this one. The investigator starts by creating a profile of the criminal, and then they map out what happened before and after and during that crime happened, and they solve it. They gather all their leads throughout, they interview other people, they put together the story. And then after they've solved it, that might become a part of like a bank of lots of similar crimes, and they might start looking into themes. So a whole lot of different financial crimes or a whole lot of different bad businesses doing something. And that becomes a pattern, and then that can be a preventative goal, like changing a government policy. So they go from one crime here and there to identifying a theme and pattern and becoming preventative. Just as we do. We profile our users, needs-based, all their user personas and all that stuff. We map out those user journeys. how'd they get from A to B, how'd they achieve their goal. We look at the different layers of it. We look at that perception layer, the top layer, the experience. We look at that middle layer, the interaction, the user experience, the heart of the experience. And we also look at the back end, the performance. And throughout that, we're looking for relationships. And then eventually, we can become proactive designers and design for needs that customers didn't even know that they needed. Love this one. We should pursue all reasonable lines of inquiry, whether they point towards or away from the suspect. Diversity and inclusion. Got this from the UK police website. So if we're meant to be looking at everything, it's a lot of data. We've been talking a bit about that this time. It feels like you're drinking from a fire hose. There's just so much data. Apparently it's more like this. And it's really easy to get lost in all of this data. So one of the techniques I've been translating is right at the beginning of a design project. So getting some focus. Where can we start to funnel that data into some buckets? So the problem analysis triangle, PAT, is a handy one. So I've made a prettier visualization than the police website, I think. So you've got the 3 key focus areas. They're of equal importance, and an investigator has to prove what happened in each of these sections. So if we change that to an experience from an incident, becomes the same kind of thing. We need to focus on the journey. We need to understand the user and the different offering that we're designing for. So I do things like journey maps. I'm sure you guys do those things too. We have personas. And I spend a lot of time creating value props with teams, using things like the user-centered design canvas and all those awesome lean canvases we've got. And I also used it in a previous life as well, designing conversations. So a chatbot or an AI could talk about so many things. That's a lot of stuff to design. So we applied this triangle to help us focus and design one conversation at a time. So that's our beginning, getting our focus. What about collation? So we're starting to collect all this data. We're starting to look at different leads and opportunities and looking for relationships, basically, between all the different layers of our experience. So you're getting your data from the perception layer, that NPS, what's going on, that middle layer, the interaction, the user experience, your usage behaviors, your interactions, and then that bottom layer, the performance and the reliability. And the leads can come from different intercepts of all of those different layers. Is performance really impacting perception, or is it the interaction? So starting to really kind of map your different opportunities to different layers of your experience. It often tends to look like this. Our research walls, we get a little bit like crazy mindy people with everything everywhere. And at Wynyard, the software turned that madness into visualizations, which we've learned from the past few talks are key to helping people understand what's going on. So this was called an entity map, and it basically visualized relationships and different types of relationships, enabling people to point out and see things that we kind of missed, so you could find as many leads as possible. So that's the beauty of visualizing, guys. We're finding gaps. We're helping other people see things that we couldn't see. And I really love this quote from the CII, Psychology of Intelligence Analysis. It's not a failure of collection. There's so much data. It is this analysis where we fall down. So really watching out for our biases and the benefits of having diverse teams. This is where this really shows up. So within my work, this looks pretty similar to those entity maps. We're basically looking at relationships in our businesses between tools and teams and processes and the different, how all of those different things connect at the end of the day, the experience. And sometimes you can map them out in journey maps, really looking into those layers, gathering as much data as possible, taking that giant step back while also having all that detail within it. So this is an example of when we thought the problem was kind of this one part. By mapping the whole thing out, we realized we needed to start at the beginning. You guys have seen all this kind of stuff. And then once we've got all this, we've got all these opportunities, where do we go next? We've done all this amazing collection, we've generated some leads, we've got a few assumptions, and this kind of stuff, the Johari window, which I'm sure we love a matrix. How many matrices do you guys know of? This is really helpful, and intelligence analysts also use this to explain the value of machine learning. It's really finding those unknown unknowns, anomaly detection. So it's quite a handy way of going, yeah, cool, we're going to start with a bit of this AI, but it needs to move into another quadrant for us to start doing something with it. So we've got our focus areas. We're going to start working on something. The next thing that's kind of handy is these thing called CACs, key assumption checks, which is basically intelligence analysts doing some user testing with a few more people. We're pretty good at that, not going to go into that much. And then once you've user tested it, you've validated that this is the right thing we should do, before launching it, we can use amazing tools like Google's HEART framework to really make sure we've got clear goals, we know which parts of the data we're going to look at and which metrics we're going to keep an eye on. So I've been doing things like tactics meetings where we go and look at, if these are our goals, this is what we think we want to happen. If it doesn't do that, what's our action plan? What's our tactics? So if the data doesn't start moving where I want it to go, we can put a plan in place before that. Saves so many arguments later on. So all this investigation and undercover spy stuff's been great. So much fun. I really love it. But like an actual investigation, it's not really over until the guy's behind bars, is it? Like, the investigator doesn't just hand over a whole lot of data and insights to a court or a jury and just expect them to make a decision. So I'm starting to wonder, maybe this is why within our businesses, we're still not really being valued, or this is the proof perhaps that we're missing. So we're great at communicating and co-designing throughout that process, which, in all honesty, I don't know why that doesn't speak for itself. But why does lean and delivery still get all the glory when it's design and CX that's really focusing on the real problems and experiences versus features, and testing ideas really quickly to deliver faster, better ROI for our organizations? The devs are still the rock stars. We saw that in Eric's speak yesterday. That's where all the money's going, into the delivery still. So I think the second part, and this is the second set of skills that I've been trying out, is when the prosecutor comes in, where we turn all that work into a case. You know, they've turned all these phases, they've done all these things, they've created all these insights, and they really put together a case. So this is where I think we can switch modes and create our design case to really convince people and to really get the outcomes of all that hard work that we did. And utilize, we've gone from utilizing all those fantastic mindsets that Dan Brown showed us yesterday as well, and this is really taking all that work and moving it into another mindset. So what makes a good case? This is my key takeaway. It's also an easy acronym for easy remembering. I thought that was good. So what makes a good case, guys? I think we all, if we sat down and had a conversation, we'd come to the same conclusion, but it's really, we've got to believe in it. RuPaul again. We've got to believe in it to be able to sell it. Do we believe in our design? And do we have a strong argument? What's our angle? What change do we think should really happen? And have we got all that supporting data? The DHRs yesterday, design history reports, are they all there? And then finally, and I think most importantly, is people don't change by looking at a graph. We know this is why we're in design. We can design, we've got this crazy set of skills that can actually design experiences that change behaviors. So we need our case to be emotive as well to make that change happen. So don't just take all your facts to court. Craft your story. Design the angle. Pick what's your perspective? What's your perception of it? And this is where I fall down a lot. I'm exhausted, in all honesty, from that initial phase. I'm burnt out. I've been so busy in that project, and I'm kind of just excited to get on to the next project. So this is the second set of skills for proving the ROI of CX and how it might help us with what happens to have become, again, this is the accidental theme of our conference, proving the value of what we as designers do within these organizations. So we're prepared to really bring successful change. So I've had a go, I've been trying. There's a lot of stuff out there that's sort of inspiring the different ways of trying. Nick Baumaus, the incredible researcher and writer of Userpalooza and Mr. Tappy, makes these incredible research summary posters. So I was having a go at that. My previous job, we'd do a research project and we'd summarize it and we'd talk it through so anyone who came on board knew how we got from A to B. so they could connect to it. And again, you know, our comic strips, you guys have all seen these, really great way of profiling a customer and what's going on and visualizing a future state maybe. And then also I've, funnily enough, learned from my own business, which has been quite interesting and a journey itself, trying different angles. So not everybody's interested in the same angle of your project or your design. So for instance, Redshift and Now This were really hot on women in tech, because my jewelry is designed as a statement for women in tech. You guys belong? Yep, woo. But then TVNZ and M2 were really interested in 3D printing and the technology and what that's doing to the world. So I guess it's kind of like practicing PR. What are the different angles? What are the different storytelling? What are the different outcomes? So don't get stuck on one angle when you're trying to deliver your case. Try out a few different techniques. So this is my second mode. After being your detective and spy mode, where you're focused on that MO, you've been collecting, you know, that motivation, you've analyzed all the things you've collected. Now you need to share the most appropriate stories that you need to be able to control your narrative and influence the outcome of your work. Be that prosecutor. Really change modes from that you know, we're all good at being comfortable and uncomfortable in the design and discovery phase. And I think we need to change our mode once we've gone through that to a real storyteller, prosecutor kind of mode, which is, I guess, taking a step back from all that work and going, not what I was attached to with that project, but what's the most important part? What are the key things? You're out of that maze now, get out of it, and take a step back at that macro view and craft your case from that view. So that's my message, and I hope that it's helpful and inspiring. And I'm on all the socials, my jewelry's on all the socials, and thank you guys so much, and thank you UX New Zealand. Cool.